let's talk about the three major parts to personal development. And I'm sure you've already guessed these three major parts to personal development. Number one is physical part. Part of success is physical. Some people don't do well because they don't feel well, right? One of the first things to go to work on with intensive effort, and that's your own good health, because a lot of things come from that. You know, the future possibilities could be greatly diminished by being lazy in producing maximum health. If you'll take care of that as a support system, you can't believe what else is possible. You can't believe what the mind can think of. You can't believe your imagination and your faith and your ability to say, hey, I'll go to work and produce the muscle to do the deal. Why? I'm healthy. I'm vigorous. I'm vital. I'm not out of breath. But sometimes, you know, when all these ideas and stuff comes and, you know, you're a little bit too weak to even attempt, you say, oh, I'm not sure I can do that. The doubts sometimes are more physical than they are mental. You haven't got the vitality to believe it's possible. But if you've got the vitality and the strength and you've got the health to do it, I'm telling you, ideas seem to love to be invested in healthy people that have got the ability and the ambition to pull it off. They got the health to do it. They got the strength to do it. One thing I have to protect with a vengeance is my own good health. You couldn't have my schedule. People look at my schedule. In the month of March, 23 days around the world. And sometimes a city a day, you know, from Tokyo to Singapore and from Singapore to Thailand. And some people look at my schedule and say, impossible. And I say, yes, only except for me. I'm the only one that can do this kind of schedule. Everybody else is too young. Okay? I'm the only one who can do it. But I have to really work on my health. It's amazing. Sometimes I have to eat 4 times a day, 5 times a day to get enough fuel, enough food, right, to furnish the fuel for my calendar. Because a lot of times I'm flying all night, lecturing the next day when I arrive. It's incredible. And you can't do that worldwide kind of high-intensity activity without being incredibly healthy. So the idea of being rich and the idea of covering the world and the idea of lecturing around the world, those are high and lofty ideals, but unless you have the health, I'm telling you, it can't be done. So why not start with the health and see if your own vitality would inspire you to more imagination? Because now when you imagine, you can pull it off. But if you can't pull it off, you know, why imagine? The imagination says, why to go to work and spin all of these goals and stuff when the body isn't ready to produce? So start with physical. It's very important. Now here's some good ideas. There's scripture that says this, treat your body like a temple. Excellent phrase. Treat your body like a temple. A temple meaning something you take extremely good care of. Treat your body like a temple, not a woodshed. A temple. Here's why. The body and the mind work together. The body and the physical and the health is a support system for the mental that can dream, that can think, that can ponder, that can wonder, that can design, that can believe, that can have the spirit and all that's possible in terms of emotional content. But now, since the mind and the body work together, you got to take care of the body as a support system. One wise man said, sometimes the spirit is willing, but the body is weak. See, that's a sad combination, a willing spirit and a weak body. Sad. You wake up in the morning, right? The mind says, let's go get him. The body says, I can't even get out of bed. Someday you got to say, you know, body, that's the last time you tell me you can't get out of bed. I'll drive you to the health food store. I'll make you read every book that's ever been written on nutrition. I'll choke vitamins down you till you gag. I'll make you do push-ups till your tongue hangs out. This is the last time you tell me you can't support the dreams I've got going. I got to have a healthy body here. So have a talk with yourself and say, this is the last time I'm going to be out of breath. This is the last time I will lack the vitality to pull off my dreams. Because sure, the dream factory will shut down if you haven't got the vitality and the energy and the health to pull it off. So start taking care. Now here's the key to be conscious of self but not self-conscious. You just got to take care of it. You don't have to be a fanatic. It doesn't take 8 hours a day pushing weights to have relative good health. Just do the simple stuff, the exercise and the nutrition and the health and just do the stuff. Okay. And I'm not saying, being a bodybuilder isn't okay, but, for normal pulling off with vitality, the dreams that you want, just a simple little plan will do. Now, also part of the physical is the outside as well as the inside. Interesting phrase written. It says, God looks on the inside, people look on the outside. So you got to take care of both. The inside for God and the outside for people. What's the old phrase? You never have a second chance to make a first impression. So the outside appearance is also valuable as well as inside vigor and vitality. Somebody says, well, people shouldn't judge you by your appearance. Let me give you a clue. They do. They do. You can't bypass that. Now, of course, when people get to know you, they'll judge you by more than just how you appear. But physical, outside, inside. Here's what's good advice. Make sure the outside is an excellent reflection of the inside. Take care of both. So first, in personal development, on these three parts is physical. Here's the second, spiritual. I am a believer that humans are a special creation. I don't ask other people to adopt my belief, but I simply am a believer that humans are unique among all life forms. And on spirituality, since I'm an amateur, here's the best I can tell you. 3 key words. Remember these words? If you forget the rest of the seminar, here they are. Study, practice, and teach. If you are a believer in whatever religion or whatever spiritual part of your program, these are 3 excellent words. Study, practice, teach. Don't neglect your studies on your own spirituality, whatever its origin, whatever your beliefs. Then practice. Put it into practice so that, number 1, you become a good role model, first for your children. Then teach. Pass it on. You got to pass it on to the next generation and the next generation. What if the next generation gets a little weaker and the next generation gets a little weaker? Now the family foundation is starting to be weakened, which now weakens the nation because the nation is built up of strong family foundations. So if you got those 3 words now, repeat them after me. Study, practice, teach. I'm asking you to pass that along. Study, practice, teach. Now we'll have a strong country, strong community. Now here's the third part. First is physical, second is spiritual, third is mental. Some key phrases on the mental part. First, the mind must be nourished. It's got to have good food. The reason for coming to a 2-day seminar is just food for thought. Bread for the head, we call it. Yes, you need a slice of toast in the morning, right, for your body, but you need a slice of cassette. A slice of cassette you put in the car system and listen and listen. Let something feed your mind. Okay. Here's what I teach in one of the other seminars on the mind, and that is stand guard at the door of your mind. Don't just listen to anything and everything. Make sure that you're your own best filter of what goes into your mental factory and spins out the fabric of your life and future. Stand guard at the door of your mind. Spend time. Be a selective listener. But you got to have a good diet, a good mental diet. When you walk into a home and walk into the pantry of the kitchen, you take a look what's in there. This family's either going to be healthy or it isn't going to be healthy. And a lot depends on what's in the cupboard. What you bring home, right, from the grocery store that you feast on for the body. Now here's what's important. A proper menu for the mind, to make sure that it's got a wide range of nourishment. Because the mind needs the full education. The education of the dangers of life as well as the possibilities of life. When I teach philosophy, the 5 major pieces to the life puzzle, here's what we teach in philosophy. Life consists of really 2 major things. One is avoiding the dangers and taking advantage of the opportunities. That's what life is all about. Avoiding the dangers and taking advantage of the opportunities. Now, by education, you've got to be able to see both, where somebody points out to you, these are the dangers, these are the possibilities. And if you keep refining your ability to see the dangers, to avoid as many as possible, and to see as many opportunities as possible, and to maximize those as you go and refine and go produce and refine, Now, that starts to develop the foundation for what we call a good life, a productive life, a fulfilled life. And we need this mental input. 2 days is a little staggering in terms of sort of a crash program. And you couldn't do it every week, a couple of days every week. It would be too much. But a couple of days to just really concentrate for a while. Hopefully I send you away from here tomorrow a little mind weary, right? Of taking all these notes and trying to get it all and trying to think about it while you take notes. I know it's an intense session of a couple of days, but I'm telling you it's going to be so valuable for me to express it and for you to get it. Because then you just load up your wagon full of stuff here. Mental wagon to take it home and sort it out and decide what's valuable to try today, some that you're going to think about a little bit later, but now at least you've got it. So that you'll have mental food to feast on long after the lights are out and we've left the premises. Now, we also need mental exercise. We talked about debate earlier. That's good mental exercise. Is it or isn't it? Here's what's important: to debate with yourself. To look at both sides of the issue. You must be a student of tragedy as well as triumph. You must be a student of ill as well as good. I have this unique little study on communism versus capitalism. Guess what communism taught all those years? Capital belongs in the hands of the state, not the people. We taught that's ridiculous. That makes the state too powerful to have all the money. That's why Stalin felt free to kill 32 million of his own countrymen. Why? Because he was all powerful. He had all the capital. Could hire any sized army to kill anybody he wanted to in his own country. Why? Because he had all the capital. That's too powerful. We taught all these years what? Capital belongs in the hands of the people, not the state. Here's why. For safety reasons. Capital needs to be broken up into the hands of the people. For safety reasons. So that not any one has too much power. That's why grassroots capitalism is the order of the day. It's the big wave of the future. Grassroots capitalism. Why? That's where capital is safe. In the hands of the many, not the few. Here's what else is important. Capital in the hands of the many creates millions of minds of imagination, faith and belief and activity and muscle and all this stuff that creates a society and builds a dynamic country like America second to none. Capital in the hands of everybody, not the state. Everybody. That's where the vitality of imagination comes from to build a dynamic country. Capital in the hands of the people. Communists said, no, people are too dumb and stupid to know what to do with capital. So we must take capital away from all the dumb, stupid people and give it to the all-wise, all-knowing state. And let the state run everything and let the dumb, stupid people show up for their work assignment. That is some philosophy. Karl Marx and Engels were dead wrong on where the good lies. And where the power lies. They set up communism in Cuba and called it the workers' paradise. And it turned out to be anything but the workers' paradise. Communism creates a dictator. All too powerful. But if the power is diversified into the hands of the many, not the few, it is so incredible. Anyway, ideas. Learning to debate with yourself what's good, what's bad, what's good for you, what isn't good for you. Keep your mind vigorous. Study evil as well as good. You need a good library. And in this library, you need all kinds of diversity. You need a book on Gandhi and you need a book on Hitler. Gandhi to show you how high and lofty someone's ambitions that are noble can go, and the other one to show you how despicable and low someone can sink in terms of pure evil embodied in a human. Don't be afraid of the debate. Don't be afraid of the health debate. Don't be afraid of the religious debate, the spiritual debate. Don't be afraid for something you believe in to be challenged. Because that's where the vigor and the flourishing of something is. It survives the debate. If it survives the debate, it's a pretty good idea. A senator in Washington, D.C. says, I got a great idea. Somebody says, oh, let's grab it and run with it. Say, no, we don't just grab it and run with it. What's the Senate for? To debate. And the rest of the Senate says, put your idea on the table and let's debate. Somebody stands up and says, well, I've got 3 questions about this great idea. And the one who proposed the idea says, wow, I never thought about those 3 questions. It's a good thing we didn't try this on the people. Let's vigorously discuss, right? Not mean-spirited, but to try to find what is the best way, right? Is it or isn't it a good idea? Let's debate, let's refine until we come up with something of value. Okay, mental exercises. So, feed the mind, debate, exercise, a continual diet. You can't go too long in between the classes and the schools and the seminars and the sermons and where things are being taught of value. Here's what else is important. You got to go to everything you can afford. Have a good plan, weekly plan, monthly plan to go to a variety of things, go to a variety of things. And don't miss the chance. Even if you're involved in a certain company and they say, we're going to have a training class. You say, I've been to one of those. I'm asked, you got to go again and you got to go again. You can't get it all the first time. Here's what the early Christians were taught. Don't neglect the assembly. Why? We got a brand new idea. One is it's being challenged. We need the strength of each other and the exchange of ideas to make this thing grow. And 2,000 years later, it's a very vigorous movement. But they were taught when it started, don't neglect to get, every time they call a meeting, make sure you're there every time they call a meeting. And whatever industry you're in, whatever company you're in, when they call a meeting, make sure you're there. When they call a little training class, make sure you're there. Here's why. Some of them are going to be life-changing. And you don't know which experience is going to be life-changing. You can't pick the one. You just got to go, 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 go. One is life-changing. You go, 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 go. Another one is life-changing. You go again, you go again, you go again. Another one is life-changing. For the people that were there, somebody that you met, something that you heard, and that one was just perfect. The atmosphere was right, the crowd was right, and everything was right, and you'll never be the same again. And you don't know which one that's going to be. That's why you've got to pursue. Go often, have a good plan for the search of knowledge and ideas that can inspire to the best of your potential. Key phrase. So now we've got the physical, we've got the spiritual, we've got the mental parts of personal development. Now let's keep going. Part of personal development has to be refined in the marketplace. Because we talk a lot about business in these 2 days because that's sort of my thing is business oriented. You go to one speaker and they're more spiritual oriented. Someone else is more health oriented. Mine is probably going to be more business. All of the pieces that help you to start with nothing become something in a more business sense, because that's the frame that I come from. So let's talk about this. Now the personal development that you must watch out for, especially in the marketplace. Here's what's key if you want to do well in the marketplace. Study your market. Part of this is regional. If you're in the South, you study the South. What are some characteristics of the Southerners? How about the North? How about the West? How about California versus Brooklyn? Right? If Brooklyn was your market, you would study that market. If California is your market, you study this market. Be a student of your market. Now here's what's very important. Your personal behavior in the marketplace. Not just what you know and what you've learned, ready now to serve in product or service, but a big share of your future success, both economically and every other way, is going to lie in your own behavior. This is part of personal development. How do you affect other people? Is that going to play a role in the kind of income you have and the kind of future you have? And the answer is yes, of course, yes. Here's one of the most important things to think of in the marketplace, your language. Your language. Now, some people who are inclined to use bad language, I'm telling you, in the marketplace is not the place. To use bad language in the marketplace, it's too costly. If you were to add up what it really cost, I'm telling you, you'd be a lot more careful. You've got to shift gears from the bar language to the marketplace language. Some things you can get by with telling a dirty story and, using a little profanity in the bar, but now when it comes to the marketplace, you've got to be careful. Here's why. You can isolate huge chunks of your audience that could give you sales, that could give you all kinds of benefits, that could really help your business to advance, but they're offended by the language. Now, here's what doesn't offend anyone. Good language. You don't usually hear somebody say, how come you don't cuss? Right? They don't get on your case for that. So, the dirty story that might have been okay in the bar is not okay in the marketplace. You got to be careful of your language. Here's why. Too costly. Isolating maybe a big chunk of your language. Now, for a little circle that you belong to, it's okay. The language, the stories, all this stuff is okay. But not in the general marketplace. So you must study your marketplace and say, hey, one thing I must watch, and that's my language in the marketplace. Now, bad language is perfectly acceptable to the people who use bad language. I mean, they got no problem with that. But the people who don't, see. So why not operate on the safe side? Here's the key. Be on the conservative side when it comes to behavior in the marketplace. Of all the places to be conservative, this is it. Why? You become offensive to almost no one. Now, you've even got to watch your language, and it's not a matter of profanity or dirty stories. You've got to watch. Here's a key phrase. Beware of using inside lingo on the outside world. You know, all the computer guys had to learn that, right? They got off in this spacey kind of language stuff, and they found out people that bought their computers didn't know how to run them simply because they couldn't understand the language. Now they had to say, well, we can use this language among ourselves, the computer lingo among ourselves, but we got to shift gears now in the marketplace and make this user-friendly in terms of language that people can understand. So, strange language in the inside circle of business and so on is okay, but you have to sort of shift gears now when you get out into the marketplace. Okay, does that make sense? Inside lingo, outside world. A man said to me one time, we got to get into the Word. I said, how small would you have to be? Not only that, he says, we have to stay in the Word. I said, how long? Into the Word and stay in the Word. I thought, Now, here's what I found out later that he meant. We should spend more time reading the Bible. Now, see, that made sense. We should spend more time reading the Bible because it's a great source of good ideas. Now, see, that made sense. But when he said, we've got to get into the Word, I thought, into the Word. In his group now, that language made sense. Right? It made sense in his group. But outside of his group, in what we call like the outside world, see, somebody says, this is kind of strangey kind of language. And it causes people to sort of back away because it's strange. So here's what you must do. Underline, shift gears. You can shift gears, right? A mama talks baby talk to her baby, but now she must not talk baby talk. And when she's getting her hair fixed, see, they'll take her away. Right? So you learn to what? Shift language from the inside to the outside world. Why? So that you won't sort of isolate or seem a little too strangey, right, to the people in your market. There's no use isolating and alienating your market, right, by just being careless. So these are some of the things on personal development that Shove taught me that were very valuable. One was language. Next was your habits. You know, smoking has been the big issue. And you know, I don't smoke, so it's not an issue for me, except a fine cigar after a unique meal. Some countries still know how to prepare a gentleman's cigar. Australia's one. It's unique. The ceremony is unique. You know, mostly for style. You know, I'm not a smoker, but, you know, a fine cigar after a unique meal. It's just for style. Look good. As long as you know which end to dip in the brandy. But now smoking. You walk into an office and you say, you know, where's your ashtray? Where's your ashtrays? No ashtrays probably mean what? They don't smoke here. You say, hey, somebody say, hey, I'll smoke wherever I please. I'm saying that's okay. But if you knew what it was costing you, just to be careless on that, because I'm not talking about the merits of smoke, not smoke. I'm talking about being careful in the marketplace that you don't wipe out unduly chunks of your market that could serve you well and make you money and make you rich just by being careless with habits. Okay. Here's another one I had to work on, being late. For the people that are always late, what do they care? They're not there when you get there. So, it doesn't matter. But if you truly want to make progress, not alienate, right, in the marketplace, here's what's acceptable to everybody. Being on time, right? Not being on time is acceptable probably, to a lot of people, but some, it's going to cost you. Now, if you're careless about your language, and if you're careless about your habits, and if you're careless about being late in some of these things, if you added up in 1 year what that might have cost you in terms of just income, in terms of remuneration, you might not want to pay that much. So the guy wouldn't make $200,000 a year, but he has to settle for $80,000. Why? These three things that he's careless about. That's too expensive. Costs too much. I asked a guy one time what his television cost, and he said $300. I said, no, not to buy it. What does it cost? What? To watch it. You got to add up what it costs to watch it. And I said, in my personal opinion, this television set is costing you about, this was a long time ago, at least $35,000 a year. To watch it. Not owning it's cheap. Watching it is expensive. You got to add up sometimes what things are costing you. What's this costing me over a prolonged period of time? What does this cost me over a prolonged period of time? If I'm a little careless here, and here, and that adds up to $120,000 a year, isn't that too much to pay to be careless? And the answer is probably yes. Okay. Isn't this good stuff? This is good stuff. I'm telling you, I had to go through this stuff. Now, next is dress, how you appear. Appearance is very important. I had to learn all that stuff. The white socks don't go with the black tuxedo. I didn't know. What do I know? And anything else you can think of, right? Your own deportment, your own public appearance, your own public work, where your fortune and your future is being designed. The key is to be what? Conservative. Pay attention. What could I eliminate that I'm doing that might be offensive or might be costing me more than I want it to cost? Then here's what's helpful. Get someone close to you and just ask for their advice. Somebody now not to be critical of you, but to be helpful. There's a difference in being just critical and being helpful. That helps you with your dress, that helps you with your manners, that helps you with your mannerisms. I did a little program the other day, 45-minute on a network, and the title of it was Things My Mother Taught Me. Just a few simple things. Mama said, sit up straight, because she had a vision of me in the future of this person who walked straight, chin back, shoulders back. So she wanted to prepare me for that. It wasn't to be mean to me, sit up straight. No, because she had a vision of what I could become if I just followed a few simple disciplined rules. Learn to say yes, sir. No, sir. I love the South because that's part of their culture is yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Yes, sir. I go to Mexico. I love Mexico. They don't just say Jim Rohn. They say Mr. Jim Rohn. Who's coming? Mr. Jim Rohn. Not just Jim Rohn, Mr. Jim Rohn. Right? Don't you like that? That's culture, that's style, that's uniqueness. I like that. Be a student of that. How could you brush up on language and style and dress and portraying yourself in the best light so that it wins you the position, it gets you the place, it gets you an audience, it gets you a lot more people to say yes that before were a little bit offended. Mama said, don't stand too close when you talk to somebody. Right? Leave a little space, because the ones that come up too close, we try to figure out a way, right? Some kind of way, just, that isn't too offensive, because too close is what? Too close is too close. Too close. Mama quoted me ancient scripture, go not often to your neighbor's house, lest he be weary of thee. Don't go too often. This is called sophistication in its early stages. These simple little things you can be taught. Mama taught me, always eat before you go to the banquet so you won't appear hungry. I thought, wow, I didn't know that. That's how you come to the banquet to eat. So, no, Mama says, no. Mama said the banquet is more social than food. You know, there's very little food, mostly social. Talk to the people. How are you? Engage in conversation. Use it as a social exercise, not as a feeding frenzy. Okay. So to avoid that temptation, right, to just, gobble it all up, Mama said, eat before you go to the banquet. See, now, on my own, I probably wouldn't have thought of that. And I've been around a lot of people lately that hadn't thought about that. Women have the advantage because we got finishing schools. They still have finishing schools. Men have a challenge because there's no finishing schools for men. And I've met some men lately that weren't finished. Right? Somebody said it's okay to be a self-made person as long as you don't consider the job done too soon. Okay. So you've got this now? This is good advice for personal development. Because remember, success is something you attract by being an attractive person. Attractive in language, attractive in skills, attractive in social conduct. All of this stuff is so vitally important. Next, a code of conduct. This is not a bad idea to just someday sit down and sort of say, what is my code? How do I want to appear in the marketplace? What do I want to accomplish, and how do I want to accomplish it? What's the principles I'm going to live by and the code I'm going to operate from? Sometimes a company will sit down before they launch the company and say, here's the code. Here's how we're going to do business. Here's what we're going to be known for. We're not going to be tempted into doing this and this and this because that's not the reputation we want to build. Here's how we're going to do it. Here's how we're going to do it. That's not a bad idea for your personal life. Here's what I want to be known for. I certainly don't want this reputation. And I got to make sure I'm moving from a carelessness that might give me the wrong reputation to move over here to the right reputation. Code of conduct. Dr. J must have had a code of conduct. Julius was one of the most famous basketball players of all time. He was the first $6 million man, not in Reconstruction. The first $6 million man in terms of the coin. Philadelphia paid $3 million to get him and then paid him $3 million in salary. The first $6 million man, Julius. And Julius was such a neat guy besides a spectacular basketball player. He was all the rage for years. Dr. J, he was called for the way he operated on the basketball floor. A writer, sports writer, asked him one time, said, Julius, what's the secret to your success? And here's what he said. And if you've got this code, you got it made for the rest of your life. Here's what Julius said. I demand more of myself than anyone else could possibly dream up. See, that's spectacular. I demand more of myself than anyone else could possibly dream up. Julius is probably saying, I get on my case more than anyone else could possibly do it. I know when I'm doing it right, and I know when I'm letting it go. That's a great code. Okay, let me mention one more on personal development, and we got a few more when we come back from the break. This is it now, your personal development library. You've just got to be a good student and gather the material and the books as you go along. I started my library. Some of you have heard those earlier seminars and cassettes. When I was 25 years old, I got one of the best. Even on my farm now, I've built a library for 2,000 books on the farm in between, all the rest of the stuff we do, making wine and raising potatoes. It reminds me of Elmer Gibson, my old buddy down in Kentucky. His father was a moonshiner, and I met him before he died. Elmer's old papa. He was something else, and he was a moonshiner. Elmer said he could look at a field of corn and tell you how many gallons per acre. That's pretty good. But even on the farm, Got to have a library. Got to be surrounded by the books. You know, the books that made me healthy, and the books that made me wealthy, and the books that changed my life, and the books that refined my philosophy. So you got to work on your personal development library. Just start, and then just keep adding to it. Just start and keep adding. I don't have a list. You know, in one of my other seminars, I recommend 3 books. One is the Bible. Second is a book called Think and Grow Rich. Third is The Richest Man in Babylon by George Clayson. And I might add one more here called As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. You just start, and then you just do your own research. Here's where you find a lot of good books, in the used bookstores. I spend a lot of time in the used bookstores, right? Searching for stuff that, you know, is not that easy to find. But building a personal development library. And you need the full range now of your library. Here's number 1, history. Got to be a student of history so we can learn from the past. Here's a good book called Lessons of History by Durant. The Durants wrote, 11, 12 volumes on civilization. Take a speed reading course, you can get through those. And they are very well written. The Durants, they're some of the best writings. This little book, Lessons of History, is a little overview of history. It's only 100 pages, but it is some of the best written 100 pages you'll ever find. You may not even agree with their premise, but you've got to agree that it's incredibly well written. Lessons of History by Durant. Here's a good book called How to Read a Book. How to Read a Book by Adler. Mortimer Adler, chief editor of the New Encyclopedia Britannica. He's written several books. The 6 Great Ideas, Aristotle Made Simple, and some more. But the one good book he's written is called How to Read a Book. How to Read a Book. It's good. It's a tough book to get through. You have to work at it. But what else is new? If you read 3 or 4 pages and say, oh, this is too hard. I mean, how'd you get through school? I mean, you try to tie your shoestrings one time and say, this ain't going to work for me. He said, no, you can't. You can't go through life with your shoestrings untied. You got to stay at it, what? Until you can do it. So get through some of this stuff. Some of the good stuff's on page 300. And if you flake out too soon, don't get to page 300, see, then you lack a lot in your personal education. So just laboriously, regularly, laboriously, right? Buy and study and practice and teach good ideas. And keep producing this library. We'll talk about another reason for the library tomorrow. Now, the full range: history, biography, autobiography, stories of unique people, how they turn nothing into something. And if they can do it, you can do it. Books on good health. You got to make the research. You got to do the study. All of us pretty well know, right? Good health consists of, right, the food groups and the servings per day gives you the best chance. And then you need a good nutritional supplementation, good nutritional support system to make up for the errors and the mistakes you make in selecting food and the quality of the food by the time it reaches your mouth. So you need a good program. So a good, healthy piece of your library on good health. My mother extended her life at least 20 years by the study of nutrition. Amazing. My father got his driver's license renewed when he was 92 for 4 years. This was an amazing man. But Mama taught good health. Mama mixed up the stuff, I'm telling you. And me and Papa, she said, if this stuff don't kill us, I think it'll help. And we're doing the deal. So your library's got to be the full range. Here's what your library needs to be like: the pantry in your kitchen, well balanced. You can't live on mental candy. Somebody says, well, I just read this positive stuff. Then you'll be too weak to make a fortune in the marketplace. You can't live on mental candy. You've got to have the full range. Yes, you need inspiration, but you've got to have the meat and the potatoes. You've got to have the stuff. You've got to have all the stuff, not just the frilly, positive, feel-good stuff. You've got to have the whole deal, okay? Bread for the head, the full range in your library.